Okay, welcome to MMJ-390 Sports Media. I'm John Mark Dempsey, and this will be the first of our lecture videos. I'm going to try to keep these pretty brief, so I may not go over every line on this thing, but the outlines will be available to you on my Leo 2DL, so you can go back and look at these on your own. Our discussions here will be based on the textbook Sports Journalism, An Introduction to Reporting and Writing by Stouffer, Schaefer, and Rosenthal, Roman, and Littlefield publishers. We'll talk about things other than reporting and writing per se, but this kind of gives us a little bit of a foundation for the course. The first chapter in this textbook gives students an idea of what to expect from a career in sports media, and I know not all of you are intending necessarily a career in sports media, but we are going to talk about that. I know some of you are athletes in football or other sports, and I would say that almost all universities have sports media positions, and a lot of you, I'm sure, know Josh Mank, so Josh is a person whom there are other people in similar positions like Josh's at other universities, and at a large university like say Texas A&M or the University of Texas, there would be a lot of people in that kind of job. So that's an interesting career path in sports media. Also, the traditional type jobs with radio and television stations, newspapers and magazines, and more there are digital media type jobs. The Barstool web site is real popular in sports, you probably know. There's opportunities for blogging and working in social media. So we'll talk about all of those. Your textbook tells you that in sports media you can expect to work long hours, certainly some odd hours, night times, weekend and holiday hours. As you know, the NFL and college games are played on Thanksgiving Day. The NBA plays on Christmas Day. So it's typically not something where you can expect to work 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. No cheering at games. One of the oldest and best known rules in sports media is no cheering in the press box. And so even if you're a fan of, let us say, A&M Commerce, if you're in the press box at the football stadium or at the scorer's table in basketball, then there is no cheering. You have to maintain a professional, sort of neutral demeanor while the game is in progress. Let's look at a video here on sports internships. I think this might be something that would be of interest to you. That's a great way to get started. I'm going to jump into this kind of in the middle. I'm not going to play the whole thing for you, but you can watch it on your own all the way.
So you want to...
We'll pick it up from about here.
Or to get you going. Strategy number 1, attend sports industry conferences and networking events. You would be surprised how many events are going on in cities everywhere. And all it takes is a little bit of time with your Google search bar to find out about them. Google things like sports conferences plus the year that you're looking up, or sports networking events near me. You'll get results for a number of different opportunities. And if you have a track within the sports industry that you are interested in, so sports marketing or the NBA, or maybe even a specific team, you can include those details in your search as well and see what events are going on that are more tailored to your specific career goals. Some events are free and some are paid, but just remember that a little investment up front doesn't hurt. Spending a little money to attend an event shows people that you're taking it seriously. It sets you apart from all of the other people that are also trying to throw their hat in the ring for an internship. And when you invest in your own future, you're going to take it a little bit more seriously as well. I'm not saying you always have to do paid events, but every once in a while, it can't hurt.
We'll pause that at that point. She gets into talking about doing things with your university. So here at A&M Commerce, there's some great opportunities within athletics to do some media-oriented things. Again, talk to Josh Mank about that, and I hope that we will have him as a guest in this course. We'll have a video with him, a conversation. KETR, our university radio station that broadcasts football and basketball, also has some opportunities. So we'll talk more about those things. Covering the game is the second chapter. We're moving right into that. There's a nice little story there from the Pulitzer Prize winning author John McPhee who talks about deciding that he wanted to be a writer, and he has done some writing on sports. And he was a ball boy when he was a little guy at Princeton University, and looked up in the press box one day on a cold, wet day, and saw people up there with typewriters before laptop computers, sitting dry under a roof in what I knew to be a heated space. And in that precise moment, I decided to become a writer. For many people who go into sports media, there is kind of a magic about the combination of sports with writing or broadcasting that draws them into this career. So it's something that if you have a spark for it, then you probably will do quite well. If it's not something that excites you, then I wouldn't suggest that you go into it or even give much thought to it. Most people going into sports media today are what are called mojos, mobile journalists, and they don't just write, but they may very well write, but also shoot video, continue to do all the traditional sorts of things, such as gathering facts, telling a story in an entertaining or coherent fashion. They certainly may blog and contribute to social media, but they're going to have multiple talents, and that video talent is probably, in social media certainly, those are talents that they're going to need in addition to the talent of being a writer. Bloggers, there are amateur bloggers and there are professional bloggers, and you may right now be an amateur blogger. Professionals, of course, are being paid for it, and they have access that amateurs don't. Print journalists, again, having to become video producers as well, or vloggers, the V standing for video there, so a vlogger rather than a blogger. But that video talent has become quite important. And then, of course, also, again, the social media savvy. Sports media are finding it necessary to cover a range of stories far outside the normal bounds of sports. So it's not just the game itself, but some subjects you may have to become knowledgeable about. Performance-enhancing drugs, legal troubles for athletes, contracts, explaining the nature of injury. So there are things other than just the game itself that you have to be knowledgeable about. Still, the age-old principles of good journalism apply in sports media: accuracy, getting the facts right, and objectivity, being fair to all sides. Those are still important. So some types of stories here. Again, I'm not going to go over every line. Advanced stories are previews of upcoming games that compare teams and players. Now, we tend to think of these as being sort of traditional stories that might appear in a newspaper, but there are advanced stories that appear online, and there are advanced stories that appear in television and radio. So this is the story that leads into the game, and so it's necessary to do some research. You want to find information on the team's won-lost record, stats of individual players and the teams, the lineups, and so on to write an advanced story. A lot of preparation is involved, and we will talk about preparation. Prepare, prepare, prepare is the line taken from your textbook there. So you are gathering a lot of information. And so to be as knowledgeable as you can, to convey things that are useful and interesting to your readers or your listeners or your viewers. Much information is available on college, pro, and even high school teams online. We're going to look at the A&M Commerce football page here, but a lot of you know this, and again, some of you are athletes, but it's amazing how much information is available at your fingertips. Here's the A&M Commerce football page, and we're going to click on statistics here. We're not going to look at a lot of statistics specifically, but just to show you, and this will take a moment to pop up, but to show you how quickly and easily you can obtain. So these are stats from last season. We saw that the team went 11-3 overall, 11 wins and 3 losses, 7-1 in the Lone Star Conference, points per game, first downs, rushing, passing, and so on. And then you have individual statistics there as well that You can look at rushing, and there will be passing statistics and receiving and defensive statistics and all of those things. So, and of course, that's available for every team. As I say, even high school teams, a lot of times there's things available online. In particular, and we will talk more about this, prepare well for interviews if you're going to interview a player or a coach. And those of you who are athletes, you may be familiar with being interviewed, and you can probably tell if someone is well prepared, if they've done their research and they know something about you before they start to ask you questions. So one thing you want to ask is, what would your audience want to know? Imagine your audience. Who, and this is something you should always do in media, who is your audience? Who are your readers? Who are your viewers? Who are your listeners? What would they want to know? And then let that guide the research that you do and the preparation that you do in developing questions for someone that you're going to interview. Michael Wilbon of ESPN says, when you do interviews, you're looking for anecdotes or personal stories. People who are viewers of sports media, readers of sports media, they want to know the players on a personal level. They're not so much interested in facts per se. And so when we do an interview, and may help to understand this as an athlete as well, what the interviewer is looking for is to get a sense of your personality. So we're looking for anecdotes, for personal stories, things that are interesting, meaningful, maybe funny, that convey some of your personality. That's what we're trying to achieve when we interview people. Again, more on what should be contained in an advanced story. Go back and look at this on your own and pay attention to each one of those individual lines there. Also, game summary stories. This is the story about the game itself that was played after the game. After the game is over, someone won, someone lost, what happened? So this is a summary or recap of the game that may appear in a newspaper, but also may be certainly online. The A&M Commerce, again, football site will have a story about each game. They're available for anyone who wants to read it within about an hour or so after the game, with statistics, with photographs. So one thing we do want to be aware of is that keep in mind that readers and viewers will have very often seen the game themselves, if not in person, then perhaps on television and maybe streaming television, and already know the outcome. So you want to give them information that is beyond just who won and who lost and what was the final score. Why or how did the Cowboys win? Why or how did the Lions win in their game? So if you are writing for an audience primarily of Cowboys fans, you will focus on the game from the Cowboys' perspective. You're going to focus on what the game meant to the Cowboys. Vice versa, if you're writing for Giants fans, then you're going to focus on the game from the Giants' perspective. And you're going to focus on what the win or what the loss means to the Giants, and who on the Giants had a good game or did not have a good game. Same thing with A&M Commerce or any college team. You still should remain objective. People need to know that whatever information you give them is factual, and that you're not leaning one way or the other just because you're a fan of the Cowboys or the Giants or the A&M Commerce Lions. We want to minimize kind of corny sports jargon, overused, worn out, barn burner, squeaker, nail biter, any of those kinds of old-fashioned phrases, and even some that are not so old-fashioned tend to be overused. We want crisp, lively words in writing, and this is whether it's for print or for broadcast or for online. Words that convey action and energy, and especially your verbs: run, jump, throw, hit, tackle. Those verbs are especially important. Words that convey action and energy. You want to bring emotion into the story. Sports is a lot about emotion. People are very happy or or very, very sad, depending on the outcome of a game. So your author describes writing about the loss of a volleyball team, their distraught faces, tears streaming down their cheeks, capturing that emotion with a revealing quotation also. What did the players have to say about this very painful loss, or what did they have to say about a very exciting win? But we want to try to convey the emotion of the event. Covering professional events, you want to dress appropriately to cover a professional event or even a college sports event. You can get by a lot, and of course you go to your classes, maybe you're wearing shorts and a t-shirt and what have you, but probably for covering even a college sports event here at A&M Commerce, a Division II event, business casual would be the way to go. So probably some slacks, trousers, shirt with a collar, wear a belt. I'm talking to males here, obviously, but whatever business casual would be for females would also be the best way to go. You will find at events, and even at this level, at the Division II level, generous hospitality rooms with food and drink. And they are there for media and others working at the event, but working here is the key word. Don't abuse the privilege of a place like that and just sort of take all the pizza or just stay in that room and don't do any work. We've had students that we sent to Mavericks games before, and students ended up not working so much, but just kind of having a good time and hanging out in the hospitality room or whatever, and that did not create a good impression. So don't abuse the privilege of those hospitality rooms. Stats and quotations at professional and college events will be provided for you, especially stats throughout the game, both on hard copy and electronically, and then quotations after the game that you can use. So you have a tremendous amount of information that is provided to you. Won't spend a lot of time on post-game analysis. It's another type of writing, but we're talking about post-game analysis. We're talking about an opinion piece, probably written from the perspective of a veteran, experienced writer. That writer, Tim Calishaw, someone like that with the Dallas Morning News, is someone who's been around for a long time and who has a lot of experience and a lot of perspective. So that's probably this is not the kind of thing that you would be asked to do as a student, unless it might be for the East Texan. If you're writing for the East Texan here on campus, then that might be a possibility. This would be written from the writer's experienced, informed point of view, and yes, it's an opinion piece, but it would be based on facts. So this, again, this might appear in a newspaper, but it might very well also appear online. And while the Dallas Morning News still exists as a traditional newspaper, it also exists very much online. And the writing that appears having to do with the Cowboys and the Rangers and the Mavericks and the Stars and college teams is also available online. So anytime we're talking about writing, we're talking about online opportunities as well as traditional print type experiences. So the sports analyst or columnist is usually writing for the true aficionados who already have a lot of knowledge about sports. So that's a beginning here. The first couple of chapters outline of the first couple of chapters from our textbook, and we'll continue with this as we go forward. We'll have some conversations with sports media folks. We'll have some readings for you to do. So I hope you enjoy the class. Thanks.